Okay, so, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the Colorado Department of Agriculture, our new facility that we moved into here in May of this year. We appreciate you taking the time and out of your day in this busy Christmas season to come and hear a little bit more about the hemp program and where we are. I'm Mitch Shergert. I'm the director for the Division of Plant Industry. Plant Industry is one of 8 divisions within the Colorado Department of Ag, and that's where the hemp program sits. Give you a few introductions here of some people in the front. Dwayne Sinning is our hemp program manager. He'll be doing most of the program today and presenting the rules. Sharon Farr works in the hemp program as well. Cheryl Smith is in the back. If you need to use the restroom or any of that during this time, find one of them. They're back up kind of in the front where you came through. And also, if you go down this hallway here, a couple doors, there's a lunchroom there if you need water or one of those kind of things during the meeting. Here at the front table, we have a couple members of our advisory committee. In the hemp program, they were statutorily set up an advisory committee. Chad Fitzer and Alfonso Abeda are 2 of the people that were appointed by the Senate and House chairs of the Ag Committee to be on that group. We have 9 others that function that. We have our Assistant Attorney General, David Joris, here with us as well in case we have any legal questions. The purpose of what we want to go over today is really to review kind of what happened this year in our first year of our hemp program, and looking forward, the proposed rule changes that are now in place to address some of the issues that we found and some of the things we need to clean up and take care of. Whenever you start a new program, and we do this quite frequently, you always learn a lot in that first year. We probably learned a lot more in this program than we have in others just because of the uniqueness, and typically you can look out at other states or other areas and say, yeah, and we know a lot about this, so we can go in that direction, make a few changes. This is a little different than that. It's all new to everybody. It has a lot of play with the marijuana regulations, and there's some overlap there that gets confusing, and so we had an interesting first year. We learned a lot. We had a number of registrants that Dwayne will kind of talk about those numbers. But then as a result of that, then we are making some proposed rule changes to move forward to make the program better. And that's what you have in front of you. If you picked up one of those with all the red lines on it, those are the proposed rule changes. We went through and made some changes, met with the advisory committee here about a month or so ago, ran it past them, made a few more changes, and then have proposed this in the whole state rulemaking process. And that process is very formal. So we have to propose the rule, and that's what you see there. It gets published in the Colorado Register. We'll hold a hearing, which is a formal process as well. Anybody can come in and make comments about the rule. That hearing will be January 23rd at 10 o'clock in the morning in this building. My guess is probably in this room, but somewhere here on the first floor. So January 23rd, 10 o'clock. But again, that's a formal process that we go through, and at that point, there's not a lot of give and take. We present the changes, and then comments are accepted. There's not question and answer in that. So that's a little more formal, and if you have comments to make, I invite you to come at that time. But because there are so many changes, because so many things happened this year, we wanted an interim step before we get to that formal process to kind of discuss why we're making the changes with the rules, what they're about. Some of them we've had a lot of questions about what does this mean, and so we'll go through that. So really that's our goal today, is really focus on that document and those rules and see if we can clarify some of the questions we've had and take your input on those. They won't change now until after the hearing. So what you see there is what has been proposed. There are changes that would come after the formal process of the hearing. Our goal is to have the rule changes made as we enter the next growing season, and we're on track to do that with the hearing in January. Anything that comes out of that, then we would evaluate for changes. And then after that, it has to go to our Ag Commission, which is an advisory group to the commissioner. They approve it, and then the commissioner adopts it. So it's kind of a 3 or 4 month process here that we're undertaking according to the Administrative Procedures Act, and that kind of shows where we are in the step. We proposed the changes, but now this is a time for some give and take, and then we'll go through the formal process in January. If we could, because the rules are so interconnected, you change the definition of one thing and you think, wow, that's big, but it relates to how it's used in farther back. So if we could hold the questions kind of till the end, write them down, we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. But I think it'll make a lot more sense if you kind of hear the overall view of what's going on, and then we can go back and we can use the slides and go back as far as we need to go or whatever to answer the questions on the end. So I'd appreciate it if you'd write down your questions as we go through here, and then at the end we'll have a significant question and answer period. There's probably topics that some of you are interested in that are outside of the rules, seed availability, things to do like with CBD oil and those kind of things. We'll try to hold those to the end. We'd like to make sure we get through the rulemaking. That's kind of the big push at this time, and if we have time for those questions at the end, we'll be happy to have that discussion as well. Any questions of me before we get started, or logistics, or hopefully all of you can arrange yourselves. You can see we do have the monitor back there. It'll show the same as here. We do have a microphone if we need it. I'm not sure how well it works in here, but I think it does work okay. If you can't hear, let us know. And with that, maybe we'll get started if there's no questions. Thank you. Dwayne?
So again, to reiterate what Mitch had to say is we really appreciate everybody taking the time out of their day to come. It's important for us to get your input, understand what your concerns are, explain why the rules are important and what that means in, like Mitch said, in totality, not just one little piece at a time. We want to clear up some misunderstandings, I think, that are out there. And this is a great opportunity also to network. So with that in mind, before we even get started, I know there's a lot of people in the room that may not know who's sitting next to them or who is in the room. So when we got registrations, we noticed, boy, we have a number of our registrants. How many are our registrants in here? So you can kind of look around, see who else is kind of in your shoes. How many in here are processors, producers? So there, if you're looking for somebody to network with your product afterwards, there may be an opportunity. Educators, how many educators do we have in the room? Okay, so we got a few in the education field. I know we have some trade organizations. Yeah, we got 1, 2, 3. So we got a few trade organizations, 4. So again, great place to start to network. People to talk to, like industry, like interests as you might have. And I also know we have some legal counsel in here besides Dave. We have some, so it's an opportunity for you to find somebody that may give you some legal counsel. Anyway, did I miss anybody that's got like a segment in the industry I didn't touch on that? All right. So that at least gives you an idea of who you're sitting next to, who's in the room, how to connect. So we want this not only to be us talking to you, we want at the end this to be a chance for you to find a great way to network with each other and to reach out. So with that in mind, I'll touch a bit on before we even get into the program. Part of the real reason for this is for us to explain why we think the rules that we've got proposed are important. And it's not because we're trying to impose something. What we're trying to do is carve out a legal landscape for industrial hemp to be fully able to operate in the state. So we get concerns from DA. I get calls from a number of sheriff or people's lawyers. I get calls from out of state. I get calls from sheriffs. I get calls from registrants on the other side. So this is kind of a way for us to try to explain why things are important, how we're trying to carve out, we're not trying to punish anybody, how we're trying to really lay out a legitimate landscape for the legitimate people to do business and make sure that it's a level playing field for all parties. So that's really their goal today. If you've got questions, like Mitch said, at the end, we'll try to address all the questions we can. I'm sure there are some that many people will have the same question at the end, and we'll try to address those at the end. So with that in mind, Industrial hemp program, what we saw this last year, and a look ahead. So I'll start with just really, it's been a short road for the department, and it started in 2012 with Amendment 64, legalizing the recreational marijuana and industrial hemp. The legislature gave us the jurisdiction to regulate hemp separately from marijuana. Justice Department issued the Cole Memorandum, and if anyone in the room hasn't read the Cole Memorandum, I will pop the I'll call bullet points, 7 of the 8 bullet points that one absolutely doesn't apply, but 7 of them are at some level of things that you should all be aware of. The Farm Bill, then in 2014, further authorized and explained what hemp was and what could be done with it. And then this last spring, we started off with the registration, and this summer with the legal growing of hemp in the state of Colorado. So here's the Cole Memorandum, and why it's important to us. It really addresses the concerns that the Department of Justice has put, and the next slide will show you the bullet points, why it's important for us to pay attention. And it's really because without their guidance, and we don't get a lot of guidance from the feds, believe me, the little guidance we get kind of says, if you do this, the Department of Justice isn't interested in sending the DEA in to raid all your facilities. So if you were to walk into my office, you'd see right behind my computer screen is the Cole Memorandum. I use that every day to make sure that what we're doing fulfills your needs to give you a legitimate way to do business. So the Cole Memorandum really touches on this. First couple are really probably not important. If you're really doing industrial hemp, it would be really hard to drive drugged. Not really something we should be worried about. Preventing the distribution, and I use the word cannabis, even though the Cole Memorandum says marijuana. The reason it says cannabis in there is because the Department of the DEA does not differentiate between the two. So I want to make sure that I don't use the word marijuana and you think, boy, that just doesn't mean anything to me. Now, the Department of Justice and the DEA uses marijuana the same as we would use cannabis. It includes everything. So the preventative distribution of cannabis to minors, not a big deal for us. Preventative violence and firearms. Possession of cannabis on public lands. Still probably not big issues for us. Those are really more marijuana sort of issues. Preventing the revenue from cannabis to go to criminal elements starts to be a little more of a concern. Depends on how we approach the rules that we put in place, how we can assure law enforcement of that. Preventing the diversion of cannabis to the other states. I don't know how many of you saw the news this morning, but that seems to be an increase in concern. So you can see there's concerns that start to make it farther down, that are farther down on the list here, that are more important to us as we look at rule changes. And the last one, preventing state-authorized cannabis activities to be used as a cover or pretext for illegal activities. That's really where we focus most of our time and energy to make sure that, again, you have the legal protections as far as the state can go to make sure that you and your fellow industrial hemp registrants have that protection because you're all playing by the same rules. So what is hemp? It's basically the same thing in the Farm Bill, not quite. They use a little different languages where they get to cannabis and that, but pretty much the same thing. It's any part of the genus cannabis, whether that plant is growing or not, that has a concentration of no more than 0.3% THC. If it's over 0.3% THC, it is no